I'm Mike Jolley, Senior Manager of EP Cube Installation and Support under Canadian Solar, and I want to demonstrate your final completion. After you've finished commissioning the systems, one of the things that we should do on all of our installations is do an off-grid test. Now, before we do an off-grid test, we need to keep in mind a few parameters. The amount of power that's coming into the system and the amount of power that's going out of the system. This is a single hybrid system behind me. It is limited to 7.6 kW output through the battery alone. So when I do my off-grid test, I want to make sure that I have less than 7.6 kW of demand. Specifically, line 1 and line 2 are individually limited to slightly less than 32 amps. So one of the first things I want to do is I want to take my ammeter and I want to clamp it on the load, and I can see line 1 load is currently bouncing between 5.4 and 5.6 amps. That's less than the 33 amp maximum, so this is well within the boundaries. I check line 2, that's only 2 amps. So we've got a moderate load right now. We should be able to handle a transition from on-grid to off-grid seamlessly, and I'm going to switch the clamp over to the grid right now so you can see that we are currently pulling in from the grid, and then we're going to go ahead and transition to off-grid. So the main meter is directly behind the panel here, so I'll ask my coworker to go ahead and switch off the main panel. So we heard a click, we switched off the contact, we switched off the output of the EV charger, and we switched off the AC PV. So now our light on the side of the unit is shining steady green, which means we are in operational mode. We are not in fault. We are not in standby. Now, the app, when we switch, you will see something on the top of the app that says, grid is in outage, EP Cube is working in backup mode. The EP Cube is smart enough to understand the amount of battery capacity available and the amount of load that's currently running on the unit. So it's going to generate a countdown timer and display it here that says, at the current load, with a current battery state of charge, you have 5 hours and 55 minutes of power remaining. Operational status currently says normal, communication is online, so all that looks good. So this is just telling you the exact situation. To verify, I've got the clamp on here on line 1. It's showing me 0 amps coming in. On line 2, it's showing me 0 amps. So we know indeed that the power is off and we are running on backup. You'll notice that it just jumped up to 7 hours and 28 minutes. That can happen one of two ways. Either the solar has increased as the clouds cleared and I can see it's a little bit brighter, or the load has decreased. So if I tap on the solar, it shows that we are generating 3.5 kW right now. You can see the DC here. And then if I look at the home, it's showing that we're currently loaded with a little bit over 1 kW. So the reason why the power jumped up is because we currently have enough solar to continue supplying the load of the home as well as charge the battery. So we just finished our test where we ramped up the loads during an outage to overload the unit. We overloaded the unit with over 33 amps, over 7.6 kW, and it briefly dropped out and quickly recovered because as soon as it glitched the power, it dropped some of the electronic loads and then it came back up. If we were to do it the opposite, where we had over 7.6 kW of load on the unit and then the utility went down, we would have went into an overload situation immediately, and the unit would have identified being in an overload situation. You would have seen a light flashing on the side of the unit and it would have paused and allowed us to go through the reset process to where you can push the button on and off and it'll restart the unit after the loads have dropped off. Obviously, when you have electronic controlled loads like most modern cooktops, ovens, dryers, your ranges, whatever the appliance is, with an electronic control, typically when it loses all power, it will go back to a zero demand situation. So when the power comes back on, you have to actually go to the appliance and turn it on.